The pandemic has been a timely warning to refocus on procurement strategies and make supply chains more resilient and agile. Considering multiple bottlenecks like logistics, regulations, and distribution, it is crucial that the segment needs a significant shift to mitigate risks and deliver life-saving drugs to bolster pharma operations and tackle challenges faced by pharma supply chains. Since we have the two of you here with us to discuss how digitalization is helping in a significant shift in the supply chain strategies, my first question would be for Mr. Lekhrajani. How has COVID impacted business in general and the pharma supply chain in particular? What is your opinion on that?
First of all, Prabhat, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you to ET. Let me just give you a brief. Pharmapoint is a healthcare supply chain partner. We have a pan-India operations, and we have been in the business for last over 3 decades and given us an experience of the changes that rural and urban markets are having in our country. Having said that, let me first categorically state that like most of us sitting here in this room and industry leaders across, way back in February, end of February of 2020, we anticipate something big is coming. And we all started prepping up our field force, workforce, and ensuring plans to overcome the challenges ahead. On 22nd March, if I remember correctly, what hit us was something unprecedented and something which none of us imagined. Let us acknowledge that for the first 2 days, there was absolute chaos. And by the end of the second day, pharma chain, not only pharma chain, I would say industry leaders across platforms, across pharma companies, across regulators came together to collaborate and ensure that medicines reach the last village in our country. This kind of fundamental shift across competition was never seen. I think that is the basic difference that we found that we overcame in this challenge. Having said that, what happened next is that each and every person in the pharma industry took it upon themselves to ensure that the lives of our nation are maintained. We took it in a manner that this is our time to give back and ensure that what will happen to our own family, if we take care of each and every patient, our families will be taken care. That was the thought process at that time. I'll leave it to you.
Well, as far as I am Pradeep Gadre from SciTech Specialities. We are not IT experts, so we are going to talk as far as the challenges are concerned from the industry point of view rather than what is really faced as far as the IT point of view is concerned. Now, as mentioned, these challenges were not only to ensure that the medicines will reach to the patient, but medicines will be manufactured in adequate quantity. That was something which was one of the major challenge. Because what happened since 20th March, although pharma industry was exempted from the lockdown regulations, still the challenges in manufacturing were far more higher than anybody would have ever thought. That was the basic beginning as far as the how these challenges started facing to the pharma industry.
So, and how has digitalization helped in managing supply chains and business continuity?
So, just to add from where I started off, for the first 2 days, we really found that the brick and mortar organization was the first line of support. Quickly, we realized that to ensure that the brick and mortar is supported by enough stocks, we need information. And each and every one picked up whatever information was available to them and shared it. From a stage of being just a computerized company, people acknowledge the fact that we need to go digital to ensure that this flow is seamless. I think that was set by the third day of the pandemic. Having said that, what the regulatory people did is that they started picking up data from almost every supplier, whether it's a manufacturer or a wholesaler, to ensure that what stocks are available and what can be given. What was also seen that though we were not fully digital at that point of time, the industry was not fully digital, what we realized that if we share information that is available freely, then we can take corrective action and prevent saving lives. That was the key takeaway from that.
So you're talking about sharing information. Could
Yes.
you elaborate on that?
For example, there was, like he rightly said, there were a lot of restrictions. Okay, pharma company A realized that there is a particular flight, courier flight, going from Mumbai to Bhubaneswar. That information was shared across industries. And every pharma company would know that, okay, at this particular time, this particular flight is to be taken. Let's send our stocks this way. If in particular state, one courier company or a truck company was able to manage goods, that information was shared. To the smallest level, information started being shared. And one could pick up the phone and call up, whether it's a drug commissioner or a managing director of a firm, everybody was open to talking. I think that was a fundamental shift which we never found, apart from being digital. And I would say the digital change and the acknowledgement came when the COVID certificate was started getting issued. That is when people really understood the shift from being computerized to being digital. And that at that point of time, that was almost nearly the second phase of things, people realized and started coming up with apps in which we were able to collect information and give it out to whoever is required.
Mr. Gadre, what?
Supply chain management in pharma industry is far more complex than one realizes. And in this particular process, when the pandemic or anything got hit, what was most important at this particular stage, how do we overcome this by some sort of mechanism which people started calling it as digitization. And this digitization definition itself is different at a different level when you look from the supply chain point of view. Supply chain does not necessarily means it will be interaction within the company, but this also encompasses interaction outside the company. Because suppliers of your raw materials, whether they are APIs or excipients or packaging materials, they form part of your supply chain. And these supply chains are not equally digitized from the point of view. Most of the industries today, although they talk about digitization, definitions of these digitizations at different level are different. So integration of all these various components of the supply chain becomes very important, and digitization has played a major role in doing it.
So talking about it, what are the major challenges, especially in the pharma industry, in implementing it?
Yeah, as I mentioned, normally pharma industry can be divided in 3 specific areas from the digitization point of view. Most of the industry, and I'll put it on a rough basis, almost 50% of the industries still rely on manual working. There will be another 30% who will be having semi-automatic from the point of view that data integration or data entry into the current ERP systems, evaluating them and coordinating this data through the system of email tracking or even spreadsheets is a major area which most of the industry is following. And other than major 35 to 40 industries, digitization to a level of automation is not still working it out. And even the modern technologies, like if you are taking about even the customized softwares are not necessarily used by most of the industries, although it is required to be used from the point of view of efficient management of supply chain.
Thank you. Mr. Lekhrajani, this is for you. When it comes to supply chain management in particular, do you feel digital initiatives can transform the function?
Definitely. What we have found in our practice is that we've been fortunate to have access to data in spite of being a multi-location company. Okay, so what advantage it gives us is that we are able to ensure that if, especially in this pandemic, we were able to ensure that if the product is not available in a particular territory, we are able to courier it over there. More importantly, it gives an idea of what are the consumption patterns that are then in that particular state or the city. And we ensure that on a quarterly basis, that is not a quarterly, on a 15-day basis, enough stocks are maintained. And that is kind of visibility we get because of being, I wouldn't say fully digital in this case, just by being computerized. What followed next is that we gave that ability of viewing that information to our colleagues at every branch. We made them go and interact with the key stakeholders, whether it's a hospital, and ensure that they have enough level of stocks available to them. In this situation, what happened, which was changing very dramatically, is normally institutes have a pattern of their patients that are coming in. Okay? In this case, due to the restrictions in place, the situation was very fluid and dynamic. And we would have to change and ensure that goods are supplied only at the time when there is a need. If there is a need in a particular different state, we would shift those goods out and ensure that the stock levels were maintained.
And which particular areas do you think will benefit from it the most in the current scenario?
In the current scenario, what happens is that the ability of information is gone from the manufacturer and the supplier to the local chemist or the hospital in charge, where they have the ability to tell us that, okay, this is the kind of stocks that we want, and we need you to ensure that this kind of levels are maintained. We are planning on giving them access to our levels of stock that we maintain and ask them what is their requirement, and if the levels that we prefix or allot to them is enough or not. Let me also state that I am not the only person, we are not the only company doing it. I have a lot of my colleagues sitting behind there who are together with me in this process, and the industry has recognized and acknowledged that this is the way going ahead, and sharing of information would be the only way to achieving this.
Talking about sharing of information, Mr. Gadre, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah. In case of supply chain management, as one of the major contributors to your supply chain are your suppliers of the raw material and packing material. As far as sharing information is concerned, most of the companies, they rose up to the level and not only change their manufacturing plans, but also informed or kept informed and involved their supply chain partners so that both the partners were also benefited and the companies were also benefited. From this point of view, that many of the companies, they even shared their softwares so that managing digitization at small industries level or MSME level became possible. This led basically to building of confidence between the partners of the supply chain, so that then it was ensured that the manufacturing will get disrupted to the least possible extent.
taking this ahead, how can operational efficiency be improved by leveraging cutting-edge digital innovations? Mr. Gadre, if you could take this.
Yeah. If you have to leverage the technology which is available, the most important aspect is going to be training and development of your staff as far as use of technology is concerned. Say, for example, everybody is talking about blockchain today. But blockchain application as far as specific supply chain is concerned needs to be understood correctly and needs to be implemented where it will really be required. Most of the pharma executives who are not coming with IT background, they are shying away from technology. Even I have realized that in many of the companies, barcode readers are not properly utilized, or they are not, or barcode technology is not even implemented at inventory management level, because the executives who are not trained well in the IT, they shy away from the use of the technology. So building manpower with adequate technology is the first thing what is really required for use of the cutting edge technology.
Would you like to comment on this?
I'd just like to add that the government is taking steps in this direction, and they've already announced that 300 top brands that are there in the country will be coming up with barcodes or QR codes which will ensure track and trace and serialization to the last level. So what would happen is that looking or taking even a single strip in hand, a person would able to authenticate the efficiency, the product that is authenticated, that's a genuine product, where it is coming from, and what hands it has traveled.
You're talking about the H2 scheduled drugs.
Yes.
Okay. How can digitalization make the supply chain more robust, safe, and secure for patients? Mr. Gadre, if you could take this.
Yeah, is it related to the patients?
Yes, sir.
I think then.
Okay. Let me give you an example. I'll give you a case study to explain this. Today, most of us leading suppliers have a system of track and trace in place, wherein we are able to know where we have supplied the product, if it's to which stockist we have supplied, and we have a feedback mechanism to get back as to which chemist has been supplied from there, and in turn from that chemist, which patient has been supplied. There was a case somewhere in North India where a particular product gave a reaction to a particular patient. The drug controller called up the leading agency and asked a question that this product is spurious and we're going to file a case against you. The supplier gave them full details of that particular batch and explained to the drug controller that this product has not been purchased by us, in our chain, and this particular product is a spurious product. And once that information was given, the drug controller and the drug inspectors went back to the particular chemist and to that particular wholesaler to find out that this was in fact the case. So what we are able to do by ensuring the complete chain of command being there, with information being there with us, we are able to differentiate between what is a genuine product and what is not. And having this done, apart from the leading players who are sitting here, this is getting implemented at almost every level. And this will ensure that the spurious or counterfeit medicines will be stopped. I think that is the biggest learning that we can have from this.
See,
Yes, Mr.
as far
Gadre.
as digitization at a small level or a localized level is concerned, the best example will be the corner pharmacies or corner chemist shops. During the pandemic, when the movement of people was restricted, these small pharmacies, they approach the nearby areas, and from those areas, they started collecting information because they were having access to their cell phone numbers. Societies provided them the cell phone number. These pharmacies used to call them and ask if they have requirement of any of the medicines. And after a couple of months, these pharmacies, they developed a sort of database in their own localized area. And they started calling the patients directly that it seems that your medicines, specifically the life-saving medicines like the cardiac drugs or even the anti-diabetic products, your quota must be getting over. So would you like to refill it? Now, this is a sort of, I will still call it as a micro-digitization using cell phone and even the database which is locally created. It helps patients to get the medicines on time. Again, a use of digitization.
So let me just add and pick up from what you said. Being a part of a critical chain supply organization, what is done by most of us is that we keep a track of patients and ensure that they adhere to their cycles. Because it's very important for recovery and survival that they adhere to the cycles. That information is kept in our applications and they are reminded as to when to take them next. I think that is the definite change that helps.
Taking this ahead, I would also want to, if anybody amongst the two of you could comment on the role of predictive analytics in the supply chain domain.
Yeah. Okay, predictive analysis definitely helps in two ways. First, it gives us the localized consumption. Number one, it gives us what are the disease areas in that particular district. It gives us what is running. It gives us information as to if there is a need of that particular drug in a different location, we can shift it over there. And in many ways, it also gives us a need to initiate a push. For example, if there is a tuberculosis epidemic in a particular area, okay, there needs to be a push of that particular drug to be available in that area. That's a very raw example of it, but it makes a tremendous amount of difference because that particular area is then prepared to take on that epidemic.
Mr. Gadre.
The analytics plays a very important role as far as supply chain management is concerned when the demand pattern changes. Because most of the demand pattern or the basic information which is required for supply chain is fed based on the trend analysis. But when the trend changes, then what comes into picture will be the basis on which why these changes have taken place, suddenly why certain type of products are required more than the other. Like say for example, during the pandemic, requirement of the nutraceutical products suddenly shot up. This was mainly because people were trying to work more on the prevention rather than the curative therapy. So as prevention became the basic regulation, the data available was insufficient to even give us. So when the modern tools with digitalization was used, then it was definitely possible to predict the future requirements based on the analytics.
So basically, both of you are saying that in the supply chain, digitalization could help the drugs reach the right, wherever the requirement is. So it can resolve the issue of shortage of drugs.
Not only shortage of drugs, but ensuring that authentic drugs are present. And also it will ensure that availability is present where it is required.
Yes. Okay. So I think we can take this as concluding remarks. And if the audiences have a question, we are willing to take them. Okay. So I think we can wrap this up here then. Yeah, I mean, there are no questions, so let's wrap it up here.
Thank you.
Thank you.